I did all that muted. I did all of that muted. I completely forgot to unmute, and I did the entire intro muted. So you know what? Welcome, everybody. God damn it.
Wow.
All right. All that work for nothing. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Wrestling with Toxicity. I am, of course, SuperBeard Hoover. I am joined by very special guest, my very own brother. You guys have seen him in the chat. He is here helping out as Jamal is off today. Welcome, Super Bro Jason Hoover.
What up, what up? How we doing tonight?
Of course, we are live on the Panda Wrestling Company Twitch, Facebook page, as well as the TGN Network's YouTube, Geeks and Noobs, the Geeks and Noobs Twitch, or the Geeks and Noobs Podcast Facebook. Everywhere you want to be, you can find us. So thank you for that. Nariko, welcome, my friend. He is the White Rabbit. B-Roll says he's the White Rabbit. Everybody's the White Rabbit.
Of course, everybody wants to be the White Rabbit.
If everybody's the White Rabbit, then nobody's the White Rabbit. First off, let me thank our wonderful sponsor of the PWC. That's Rootless Coffee. For some of the best coffee in the world, go to rootlesscoffee.com. It's rootlesscoffee.com. Use the code PANDACOFFEE, PANDACOFFEE, for 15% off all non-branded coffee and all merchandise. And I forgot to silence my phone once again because I am a terrible host. Take care of that now. Oh, you know what? Screw it. Fine. Just clear all these notifications. Because yes, I know I'm live. I'm the one who's doing it.
Yay! Yep, I got that notification too.
All right, so let me Elino.
Elino?
I think that works. I understand what you're trying to do there. I just am terrible at Spanish. Yes. So today we're going to talk mainly about the White Rabbit, because it's all anybody's talking about, really. I have to give Triple H a ton of credit here, for just planting seeds, little things, little teasers, the QR codes, and this all started literally between commercial breaks. Like, this wasn't even something on TV. The first few times it was just red lights and the song White Rabbit by Jefferson Airplane in the commercial. So only the people in the audience were even getting it, and they didn't know it was just something that was playing. But he was smart enough to know. He was smart enough to know that people would put it on the internet. He was smart enough to know that somebody was going to be like, you guys see this? You know, and that was it. That's how it started. Now, before we get into the actual clues and different things, I want to talk about how Mr. B-Roll, you don't know what a QR code is? Oh, we lost your video there for a second, Jason. It has been one of the best builds. It has been a phenomenal build. My only concern is this. Now, I feel like, thanks to the clues we've gotten, we will get the introduction of the White Rabbit or whoever it is at Extreme Rules. But there is a concern of too long of the long play, too long of long storytelling. When I say that, my concern is of the similar thing that's going on with the Dexter Lumis Miz thing. That is starting to drag on a little too long and not go anywhere. It's just, it seems like the Miz gets kidnapped every week. It's beat up, but there's no payoff yet, and it's been going on for a very long time. So, oh, there we go. Somehow it kicked you out of the room. Weird. There he is. He's back.
Sorry about that.
All good.
That's what happens when you misclick on something. Anyways.
Yeah, be careful on that. So anyways, like I was saying, like, before we get into the clues and everything, I do have a concern. Now, it feels like it's going to pay off at Extreme Rules. But if the Extreme Rules ends up just being yet another clue, because that's one thing. Everybody thought it was going to pay off on 9/23, but then it was just leading to another clue. Then they got the clue for Raw. Okay, it's going to pay off on Raw, etc., etc. My concern is we might end up with another Dexter Lumis Miz situation where that has gone on too long with no growth.
Agreed.
No, they have not. Jericho asks, have they given any reason for Lumis attacking? No, they haven't, and that's just gone on too long. It's just, it keeps happening. He keeps getting it up. It happened here again on Raw. he keeps getting kidnapped or attacked or whatever, and nothing's come of it.
It's almost become a Stockholm syndrome thing now, which isn't good.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be one thing if there was progression to it, but there's not. It's just the same thing over and over again. And it happened again on Raw. And there's a bit of a supernatural element to it. I don't know if maybe Dexter Lumis will be part of this White Rabbit group, and I'll get into why I'm saying group a little bit later.
Didn't think about that.
So I don't know if he's a part of that, and they're just they decided to add him after they already started the Lumis angle, and so now they're just kind of like stretching out the Lumis angle with the Miz until it's time. I don't know. Yeah, that was a great visual. That camera shot was perfect. But that should have been one of the final times. Or at least towards the end. And then, of course, the breaking into the house gimmick with the interview. Like, all of that. Like, but now it's just gotten to where, I thought the Edmonton Oilers hockey one was cool. But, like, even this week, we just see Dexter Lumis in the background petting Mrs. Hair again. Johnny Gargano double takes, and he's gone.
With a drawing.
Yeah, like...
Don't get me wrong, I like Dexter's art.
Love it.
But don't make that the focal point of the character. They kind of did that in NXT with him and Indy.
Well, that's because he doesn't speak, and I'm okay with that. But with him not speaking, he needs to be part of a group where somebody else speaks.
Right. I mean, I don't know the wrestler's real name, but when he was in Impact Wrestling going against carrying a Killer Cross and a bunch of other wrestlers, stuff like that. Yeah, he kind of had a speaking, stuff like that, but it was very low, very monotone, very, this is who I am, that psycho killer that stares into your soul, So I can understand not giving him a voice right now, but he does need representation. Be that Indy Hartwell from NXT, bring her up.
Yeah.
Or put her back with Johnny, which
I don't really see that. Like I said, I could see him maybe in part of this group, and I'm going to get back to that in a minute.
Right.
I feel like with the Dexter Lumis situation, it's the law of diminishing returns at this point, and we've gone too far. So, Generica says, I'm intrigued by it. Lumis is great, Miz is great, but this smacks of WWE thinking that this is long-term storytelling, but it's being repetitive. Yeah. That's my point. You can do long-term storytelling, but you have to... It doesn't have to necessarily increase. It just needs to differentiate week to week and not be the exact same thing, because it's the law of diminishing returns. It's just like... I love factions, and I love that WWE is going back to kind of a faction-style thing, but the constant distraction finish is going to get old very fast. In the last 2 weeks...
Last night.
Yeah. We've had 7 in the last 2 weeks.
No, we had 7 last night.
No. It was already the counter was at 3. I know you're talking about Simon Miller. The counter was already at 3 from last week. And he added, there was 4 this week. Just about every finish to the matches. And again,
don't get me wrong. If they worked right. Some of those didn't work right for me. Why was this person doing this to this person? Like, which one was it?
Well, when you have factions, especially evil factions like Judgment Day and the Bloodline and Damage Control,
right?
There should be distraction finishes. But there has to be a way to subjugate that sometimes, like have a distraction that doesn't actually lead to the finish and have somebody overcome the distraction from time to time.
Like ref throwing out, person trying to do distraction type thing.
Generica's like, I love WWE, I love AEW, but AEW at least has normal finishes to their matches, good or bad, it's definitive. I don't agree with that anymore either. Because AEW has started to go down the distraction route. They've started to go down the cheap shot route. They've started to go down the sports entertainment route. And they're getting away from clean finishes over in AEW as well. And it's like the ranking system at AEW doesn't matter anymore. And you're seeing that in real time with people like FTR basically begging to be booked on the show where they are contracted.
I mean, they did a
People
call
like,
out promo,
yeah,
calling out Tony, "Hey, book us."
yeah, like they're literally calling them out, and they're the number one tag team in the division, and yet they can't even get a title shot. Tony
It's
Storm was not number one when she was going to face Thunder Rosa before her injury. It's just the ranking system isn't working anymore because they're not doing clean finishes anymore. It's starting to get the water is getting muddied. Hey, Kel, how's it going, my friend? So it's just become very muddied on all sides of the wrestling spectrum. FTR has been number one contender for 5 years, even though the company's only been around for 3. I don't agree with that. I have my personal issues with FTR. I've talked about it before.
Yeah, your personal issues aside, I kind of almost agree with that statement about the FTR. They're good. I mean, they can wrestle.
They're very talented, but so is just about everybody else on every roster. You're not there because you're not talented. And the fact of the matter is, like, at this point, I would almost say break up FTR because I think Dash Wilder is doing better as a singles competitor than they are as a tag team.
I almost thought they were trying to do that before the Super X New Japan AEW crossover show. I quite literally thought the plot was going to be them breaking up at the show.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad they didn't do it then because I think it would have been too forced.
Yeah,
but I think it needs to be done. Obviously, Tony doesn't care about them as a tag team, anyways, because there's a whole thing there.
I hate to say this too, with the Young Bucks not in AEW right now because of that situation. The tag team division in AEW has taken a back seat again. That's the way it feels to me. Is because every time, okay, so look, we've got the Young Bucks. They're here. It's cool. Tag team division flourishes and stuff like that. Like it took me a few seconds to remember that Swerve and Lee
Keith
were,
Lee.
were the champions of AEW.
New Yorker says I was live for Dax versus Lethal. It was electric in the building. Dude has what it takes to be at least TNT or ROH champion. I agree. It might be time for a solo run. I know they don't want to do that. I know they're very much like, hey, we want to, stay a tag team. But there comes a time when you got to kind of, look at what the writing on the wall. They're not getting used as a tag team in AEW, so why not? There's a lot of things they're having issues. Like the entire women's division, I think, is still not used properly. AEW, I think that there's a lot there. There's so much potential, and it's hopefully something can happen and make a change in AEW to where Tony Khan stops booking like a mark and starts booking like a booker.
He has four of the greatest possible bookers in the history of wrestling in his federation right now, with William Regal, Samoa Joe, Christopher Daniels, and
Dean Malenko.
Dean Malenko. Yeah, Dean Malenko.
I've talked about it ad nauseum on this podcast that all he has to do is take a step back and breathe. Denise says hi, Jason.
Denise.
The reality of it is, say what you want about Vince McMahon and his booking ability. The man booked what's best for business. Now, granted, his business acumen was out of date, but he was not booking like a mark. He was not booking for himself. He booked for what he thought was best for business. The problem there was that his outlook on business, as far as pro wrestling went, was outdated. It was antiquated. However, he was still booking for business.
Yeah.
Tony Khan needs to do that. Tony Khan needs to stop booking. Every match does not need to be a fantasy dream match. Every match does not need to be, pay-per-view level banger match on free TV without a story. Like, it's got to be about the long-term story.
Agreed. And
AEW needs a second non-tape show. Dark and Elevation are okay, but when you're watching 6 hours of wrestling live, the product suffers because fans look uninterested by the end. Yeah, that's part of it. That is part of it. But the fact I wouldn't add any house shows or anything. As it is now, Dark and Elevation, even though they're taped, they mean nothing. So 6 hours of wrestling when only 2 hours actually matters, because guess what? Rampage, much as they say it wants to matter, that show means nothing now. Numbers are proving it.
Yeah.
Rampage should have been their alternative show. Rampage should have been where you're highlighting your guys that are not getting highlighted on Dynamite. And instead of just it's Dynamite 2.0.
Agreed, completely. And Tony Khan also needs to stop looking like he's got little action figures and making those, WWE old school ring matches and stuff like that.
Yeah, it literally just comes down to the fact that all AEW is missing is long-term storytelling, which they've done it in pieces. There've been a couple. You're seeing it with the Christian Cage Jungle Boy. There was the CM Punk MJF one, which was great up until the dog collar match. I was there for the dog collar match. It was in Orlando. It was a BS match. The crowd, believe it or not, people don't want to admit it, but the crowd was dead for it. And when I say dead, I'm not saying they sat on their hands. They were just chanting CM Punk just to chant CM Punk because they weren't into the match. People didn't care about the match because the match didn't work. That was another one. Omega Page, absolute masterful storytelling. Yes, 1,000%.
I'm a huge fan of the Cowboy and Cowboy shit and the story they've been telling in AEW since him being in AEW.
But you've got, I mean, when you even have people like Sting and their directionless, that makes no sense to me. They just pop up in random feuds. And like, all right, we're going to help out here. And like, just like, there's no direction to a lot of these. It's just, if there was just some direction, all AEW has to do is get some direction and turn Rampage into its own show. I'm not saying separate brands to where somebody only wrestles on Rampage. I'm just saying make it its own show. Stop having it be a continuation of Dynamite. Have it to be where people like Lethal maybe gets a bigger push, and Joe, as of right now, turn Rampage into your ROH Light.
Yeah.
Push that kind of stuff. Because even with 6 hours of wrestling, like Generico said, first off, that's got to be broken up. Rampage needs to go live. Or if not live, at least recorded on a separate day. Not tape Dark, tape Elevation, Dynamite live, and then tape Rampage. Like, that is too much for a person. It's a great bang for your buck. You're getting 6 hours for a ticket, but like he said, by the time people get to Rampage, they're just dead. They're exhausted. It's the reason that WWE, some of their big pay-per-views have gone to 2 days, like WrestleMania, is because a 6-hour WrestleMania, people were dead by the end, even though the main event was a complete banger. So there are two very minor things that Tony can do. The biggest thing is check his ego. But like, he can check his ego and then make 2 minor changes. And when I say minor, because the pieces are already there. When the pieces are already there. When it's time to renegotiate, they need to try and get Rampage's 2 hours live. It's needed. If you're going to do it live, it probably should be 2 hours in a slightly better time slot. If you're going to keep it as an hour show, which I actually think an hour wrestling show is a good idea. Because how often do people complain about how Raw is 3 hours? If you give them an hour show where that's neatly done, like when Rampage started, it's great. But he's already got the pieces in place. And even if he wanted to do just William Regal or just Dean Malenko, the pieces are already there. Use those pieces. Better your booking. And focus on building up your homegrown people, like Ricky Starks, which that was another decent storyline, but it kind of fizzled out. Like, because it kind of felt just drawn out. Like, the inclusion of the Nightmare Factory didn't make any sense in the Powerhouse Hobbs Ricky Starks storyline. But your pillars should be the ones you're pushing, not all these other people you're bringing in. Daniel Bryan, I know, is in that company solely to help build other people up. You can tell by his booking. He didn't go undefeated for a year, like some people who insisted on going undefeated. I think Jon Moxley's a great champion, but he should be also building up other people. He should not be feuding with anybody other than a pillar or somebody you're building up. I could see a cowboy, like a Hangman Adam Page feud. That would work.
That would really work.
But here's the thing. You finally put the title on Hangman Adam Page after that wonderful buildup of 3 years with Omega. And then what'd you do with him? Nothing. So there's so much there. The potential, it's right. The AEW has the ability to be great. And I think maybe even eventually hit the 2 million viewer mark. Get close to Raw and SmackDown numbers. They can do it. But right now they're starting to see their numbers drop because it's becoming to like people just can't get. Yeah, Tony gets distracted by shiny new toys. That is a perfect statement, Generico. A perfect statement.
ADD Booker.
Yeah, and it's just there was a spike in ratings after the whole all-out scrum, media scrum, and fight and brawl backstage. People want to see what happened. It's already dropping off again. Because the thing is with AEW, because they don't handle good long-term storytelling, you can walk away from AEW and come back in a couple months and not miss a thing. Maybe a championship or two has changed hands. You can very quickly find out what happened. Probably just from the commentators that day. So you can literally walk away. There was a time in WWE had that problem too, about 6 years ago, 5-6 years ago.
Yeah.
Where you could walk away from WWE and come back months later and not miss a beat. Because every story was week to week. They weren't doing long-term storytelling. Now, getting back to our original point of the White Rabbit.
Oh, yeah.
Well, before we do that, I want to talk about this. He needs a committee. He's got so many great minds around him. The buck stops with him, but he can still try and cull ideas from those amazing minds. Exactly like I said. William Regal, Dean Malenko, Christopher Daniels, Arn Anderson, Pat Buck. There's so many names backstage. But Triple H, for everybody who wants to say that I'm dick riding Triple H, then so be it. The man understands the business better than anybody right now as far as the booker side of things. Because of, he spent years, first off, in one of the greatest eras, the Attitude Era, which had some terrible storytelling, by the way. But he was part of...
You go back and look at some of the stories that were told and stuff like that and put them up to some of the stories that are being told now. And yeah, they were horrible stories, but they were stories that caught your attention. They grabbed you by the chest hairs and go, hey, pay attention to me.
Yeah, absolutely. But you got to remember, he was part of two of the greatest factions of all time in DX and Evolution. In some of the greatest championship matches, feuds. His feud with The Rock is legendary.
His match with Mankind.
Yeah. He was able to retire Mankind. He was able to simultaneously retire and rejuvenate the career of Mankind. Like Mick Foley. Mick Foley was supposed to retire, and it rejuvenated his career. And he got many years more out of that.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Many's a strong word, but...
Okay, more than two.
Yeah, you got a couple years. A few. But, it's one of those times... There's a lot of times when you see a player coach. It happens in football a lot, where a former player becomes a coach, and it doesn't work. But I think in the pro wrestling business, because it is a storytelling business first, somebody that's lived through it for so long can prove that that's usually the better person to do it. Vince McMahon was great at it back in the day. He just got stuck in his ways. Like I said, he was antiquated. He was always what's best for business. He just got antiquated about what the business was. He didn't evolve with it as he should have. But Triple H living it for 30 years and having to evolve with it makes him a much better booker. And being somebody who was talent is going to be better at talent relations than somebody who was never talent. He understands what it means to be talent. He understands when a person comes to him frustrated about their position. He understands what it means to see somebody struggle and not get the push they deserve. And I also think that he got his feet wet. WWE just added director of long-term creative. Yes. And that's a big deal.
Huge.
But he was able to get Triple H got his feet wet with NXT. And I think that helped this situation as well. Because if he'd have come into this without having done NXT, it might be a little bit rougher than it is now. And I'm not saying he's perfect, but look at what he's doing. This all culminates back to the White Rabbit stuff. So these White Rabbit teases started a few weeks ago, not even on TV, solely for the live audience between commercial breaks. And not every commercial break, just randomly through a commercial break, lights would go red and the song White Rabbit by Jefferson Airplane would play. Triple H was smart enough to know that somebody was going to record this, somebody was going to post it, that was going to get the ball rolling. What does this mean? White Rabbit, is that the Fiend? This da-da-da-da-da, got the ball rolling. Then the little cues and the QR codes in the background started popping up. We got clues. The first one being, September 23rd, and then that led to Friday Night SmackDown, which then led to the zip code to where Monday Night Raw was going to be. And there's a little bit of seeds here and there. There's been planting of, who ruined the world? You did. Hangman game, and there's been Corbin, Kentucky, and there's been, little hints and things here. And the latest one this week, I have a breakdown of it. So the QR code sent you to a website. Now, by the way, the name of that website had binary code in it. I don't want to break that down just yet. We will get to that.
Okay.
But the top of the page is a painting of Samson and Delilah. For those unaware, it's a very famous Greek mythological tale. Samson was this super strong, possibly stronger than Hercules, but he was a man. But he was gifted his powers by the gods. Power all came from his hair. And Delilah was set up to betray him. She gained his love, faked a relationship with him, and when he fell asleep one day, cut his hair off. He lost all his strength, and he lost all his invulnerability, because he was also invulnerable. He lost all of his powers when she cut his hair. Now, Bray Wyatt posted another version of this same Samson and Delilah painting, another version of it, because there are several Renaissance paintings of Samson and Delilah, after Alexa Bliss betrayed him at WrestleMania. WrestleMania 37 to be exact, which I was at, by the way. That was amazing. So Bray Wyatt tweeted it on April 12th, 2021. It was another version of the Samson and Delilah where she's cutting his hair. Oh, wait a minute. I said Greek mythology. Samson and Delilah is not Greek.
No.
It's a Christian tale. Sorry.
Yes.
Samson was chosen by God to liberate Israel from the Philistines and granted great strength in which to do so. Delilah is Philistine he fell in love with, but she had been bribed to discover the source of his strength. Once she convinces him to reveal that, his unshorn head, a.k.a. his hair, he cuts it off and he's in prison. But when it starts to grow back, God returns his strength. He's able to destroy the temple where he's kept, killing himself and everyone inside. Now, part of that QR code also showed a picture of him tearing down the temple. And in that, there are numbers kind of hidden in the bottom of the painting. If you Google those numbers, White Rabbit Milk comes up. So another White Rabbit reference. At the bottom of the page was one of those magic eye. You guys, not everybody is as old as my brother and I, but do you guys remember those magic eye paintings that were all over the mall back in the 90s? And they now have magic eye books where you had to like cross your eyes and focus to get the 3D image to appear.
I honestly believe it's because of those paintings I have migraines nowadays.
Well, to me, I figured out the trick very quickly, and I can very instantly look at those.
Mm-hmm.
An instant, you cross your eyes and focus away. Instantly, you can see them.
Yeah,
but
we know this
in that code, in that 3D magic eye thing, if I can get my mouse to work, here we go. There is a base 64 binary text of MTA4MJL. And when translated, that translates to 10/8/22, otherwise known as October 8th, 2022, the date of Extreme Rules, this coming weekend.
Yep, this Saturday.
Yep, this Saturday. Now, in between the Samson picture and the magic eye is a black screen, but if you clicked on it, there was text. That text is the same text used in the movie Predator that the Predators use. The fictional languages that the alien hunters in Predator movie franchise use. Translating that text gives you a quote from Dante's Inferno, the famous part of the famous trilogy of comedies that gave us perdition, not perdition, purgatory, hell as we know it now, and heaven. So while it did not include "Abandon all hope, ye who enter here," which is Bray Wyatt's favorite line from that, it did have quite a bit of lines from it. Now, you looked over the painting of Samson and Delilah, there was also some more letters and numbers. 751720W. The coordinates for the Wells Fargo Center are 399012 north, 751720 west. In other words, it had part of the Wells Fargo Center coordinates in that painting. This is also where Extreme Rules will be. Final part, going back to that binary code of it. That binary code spells out Gacy. Now, my brother had a theory last week that maybe it's not Bray Wyatt, maybe it's Joe Gacy getting called up. I didn't really agree with it at the time. I still don't agree with it in that aspect. But we mentioned group before.
Right.
I don't think Bray Wyatt shows up alone. And Gacy could very easily be a part.
The new Firefly Funhouse.
Yeah, I don't like. I think that's one thing too. It could be a bit of channeling Dan Brown as well, which one of my favorite authors. I love the Da Vinci Code.
Yep.
There's a lot of that in it as well. Mm-hmm. But let me say this. I think we need to let go of the Fiend. Because he's not going to come back as the same character.
No, I honestly
Bray Wyatt never does.
No. I'm thinking this whole White Rabbit thing is here's Rambling Rabbit, let's amp him up. Let's give him a body, let's type thing.
I think it's a misnomer. I think that the Firefly Funhouse is dead. I don't think that's coming back. I think we're going to get more of a mixture between the Wyatt family cult Eater of Worlds character and the Fiend in the Firefly Funhouse. I think that we won't get the Mr. Rogers fun time thing anymore. It's going to be a combination of the two. He won't have like a kind of split personality like he had with Bray Wyatt and the Fiend. I think it'll be one solid character that mixes that. I think the White Rabbit is more. I think it'll have almost a slight Alice in Wonderland feel, but it's going to be a group. I believe Joe Gacy could be a part of it. I believe Baron Corbin could be a part of it. There have been a ton of clues, including JBL as part of the clues. Now we know JBL picked up Corbin before he went off air.
We haven't seen him since.
Like JBL could be the financier / manager, for lack of a better term, to this group. And then instead of it being like solely supernatural like the Fiend was, it's just more of a, hey, we're going to take over. We are in control. You've destroyed the world, and now we're going to use the capitalism you let destroy the world with JBL, help fund us taking over. So JBL is a figurehead. Corbin becomes part of it. He goes back to similar to his lone wolf persona, but it's more obviously part of a group. You've got Gacy. It's going to be very Charles Manson cultish.
Let's see this. And we
here you go, perfect. Like DiBiase with NWO, they'll be able to do this because he has an endless bank line. Exactly.
But the thing is, for me, it makes even more sense with JBL because of JBL's APA and the ministry.
I mean, possibly, but the fact that he showed up with a limo and the fact that they still are pushing the limo is part of the clue, and the fact that he's JBL.
Yeah, but you never saw him.
You heard him though.
You heard him. I don't know. I mean,
but even I think that it's only because JBL has established so many years as JBL, even on commentary now, like doing the kickoff shows and whatnot. Having him change character now feels a little weird, but there's a way to make it work. You can bring up the APA stuff. You can bring up the ministry.
Yeah.
And he can he can just change his suits from gray to black. Go from a white hat to a black hat.
And more than one way.
Yeah, Kel says, like an NWO cult. Yeah. So imagine if Raven's flock into NWO had a baby.
Oof.
That kind of thing.
Okay, all right. So going on that thought process, we've got Corbin, we've got Bray, we've got possibly Gacy.
Yep.
We've got the money of JBL.
Yep.
Where does Loomis fit in on this?
Just Psycho, and we'll do whatever they want him to. And who better to take down than The Miz? The loudmouth A-list star. The egotistical A-list star. They're not going to be a good faction, necessarily. They're not going to be baby faces. But they're going to go after egotists and narcissists. So you asked the question before we started, what match do they show up here in Extreme Rules?
Okay.
Now, excuse me. Now, before I found out that Seth Rollins was going to have another championship match on Monday, I would have thought, because Seth Rollins has said some things about being very difficult to work with Bray Wyatt in a recent interview. And while a lot of people have tried to take what Seth has said as like, oh, he's shooting, Seth is always working.
Oh, yeah.
And I believe that interview, even though he's out of character in that interview, he's more real. I do believe that interview is a work. And to me, it felt like he was setting up. Because what was one of the biggest fails of the Fiend time? That Hell in a Cell match.
Yeah, that's Seth Rollins versus the Fiend Hell in a Cell match.
That it was one of the
time in history a Hell in a Cell match has ever been booed, and people out literally yelled at, chanted, "We want our money back."
Also, the only time that they've ever had a stoppage in a Hell in a Cell match, even though far worse things happened to Mick Foley and other people. Like, there should have been a legit stoppage in that one, but regardless. So it felt like they were setting up that maybe Seth Rollins was going to be the target. However, with him getting this championship match on Monday, I don't necessarily say that's the fight pit now, because they've done too much to set up that match. You can't, like, it'd have been one thing if he hadn't attacked Bobby Lashley. Like, if he had the championship match, but then after the fight pit got attacked by Bray Wyatt and the White Rabbit, White Rabbit Society, whatever they're going to call themselves, you could have then dismissed, like, oh, well, Seth can't make it Monday. But now that he has attacked Bobby Lashley and Bobby Lashley wants blood, yeah, you kind of can't let that go. So now, like, where does he show up? Where do they show up? He or they show up? Where does the White Rabbit show up at Extreme? I don't see it being a part of the Judgment Day. They're already their own group. So I don't see him coming after Edge or the Judgment Day.
I can see him coming after Finn and Judgment Day. I really can.
I don't think it's the right time. You're still building up Judgment Day. I don't think it's the right time to have this new group come in and outshine them in their own group.
Okay.
You already have a problem with them losing a lot. They have to win and start rebuilding their strength. So Judgment Day to me isn't an option, because you're going to bury the Judgment Day with this new group. Because you remember, whoever they're going after, this new group kind of has to win. They have to be the dominant faction.
Right.
The White Rabbit has to be dominant. You can't bring them in to lose. Now, so I think that takes the Judgment Day. I think that takes the Finn Balor. Plus, you're already building a great story with AJ Styles with Judgment Day. You don't want to pull away from that. because it looks like AJ Styles might either eventually join the Judgment Day or actually full on take them on.
Good brothers come back to WWE. Join AJ.
I thought about that, but they're under contract with New Japan till like January.
Okay.
So I don't know if they're gonna want to. Yeah, that's gonna be too long. You're already at a point now where AJ's breaking. You can't tease it that long. Because long-term storytelling is great, and I'm always a big fan of like the year-long story. Like I always do a throwback to the Virgil turning on Ted DiBiase story that took 18 months. But in this day and age, and the short attention spans, I don't see it. Now, White Rabbit could be the Judgment Day of SmackDown. We get his group versus the Bloodline in War Games, leading to a feud for the belts. Thank you, Jericho, because that's where I was going.
Oh, that sounds good.
So we know we're getting at least 2 War Game matches. One of them will be a women's match. They're already building that up with Bianca Belair, Alexa, Asuka, and Candice versus Damage Control, and Damage Control is going to need somebody else. We'll get to that. But I was thinking that the Bloodline is a perfect target for the White Rabbit. Go after the head. And you already have, with Sami Zayn becoming the honorary Uso, you've got 4 members. You've got Jimmy and Jay, Solo, and Sammy. If the White Rabbit is what we think it is, Bray Wyatt, Baron Corbin, Joe Gacy, Dexter Lumis. 4-on-4.
Yep.
There's your War Games. And what a brutal War Games that would be. And them popping up in this at Extreme Rules and attacking the Bloodline gives you plenty of time to build the Survivor Series. And you can do it on both shows, because we've seen that they've kind of bled the whole branding line. We will take your family, we will take your pride. Absolutely. So there really is so much here. The White Rabbit. If it's a group, this is the possibility. Now, if it's just Bray Wyatt coming back, and some of these clues have just been like misdirects to make people think like because obviously they've got their ear to the grindstone here. They know that social media is talking. They know somebody's mentioned. There's the Gacy theory, like you had. There's the Corbin theory. Like there's all this stuff. Like they know. So those could have been just misdirects, and it could be just Bray Wyatt by himself coming back.
Right.
So we've booked it if it's a group. They come in during the Bloodline and they attack the Bloodline. That seems to be the most optimal situation. Because again, you've got Drew McIntyre is preoccupied with Karrion Kross, et cetera, et cetera. And also, I don't think you put Karrion Kross in that group. You've already built him as a monster. He doesn't need a group. So I want to put that out there. I don't think it's that. Keep clicking off. Stop clicking on things. Stop clicking on things. Use your phone if you're gonna Google something.
You know what? You're absolutely correct. I was just trying to figure out if the Bloodline actually has any matches at Extreme Rules.
I actually don't think so. Current Rules 2022 card.
I'm looking and I see, we got Liv versus Ronda, should be an okay match. Bianca versus Bayley should be a really good match. Seth versus Matt should be a really good match. Drew versus Karrion, that is my match to watch.
My match to watch is the Brawling Brutes versus Emporium.
No,
Imperium.
That is my match to sit back, watch, and relax and enjoy the slapping meat versus that is going to be a brawl and a half.
Yeah.
And then we've got Edge versus Finn Balor in an I Quit match.
And you got Bayley versus Bianca in a ladder match.
Yes, yeah.
So yeah, right now the Bloodline doesn't have anything going on, but that doesn't mean they won't be there.
And then we've got that's Johnny versus Theory.
And by the way,
No.
every single match. I think Johnny versus Theory may be like the pre-show kickoff, the kickoff show. But every single match right now is an Extreme Rules match. Every single one.
First time in 3 years.
Yeah. So that's great. So just looking at the matches, I don't see an actual match they can show up unless they're going to put them. They're going to pin them against maybe Imperium or the Brawling Brutes, which is another option.
It is, but it's not a good option.
I mean, it's an okay option. It's a good fallback option if you already have plans for the Bloodline. A good fallback option is either one of those. You have organically turned the Brawling Brutes into baby faces. That was completely organic.
Oh, Jesus.
They did not force that down anybody's throats. They were bad guys, and then just the crowd naturally took to them.
And it was one match.
Well, it was the build-up to that match as well. But
I think one of my favorite moments in that build-up was Sheamus and Walter in the ring just staring at each other, and everybody else brawling around them.
Yeah, that was what I was going to say too. Like that moment was really where the shift happened. But you could have, depending on if you want them, is the White Rabbit faction going to be heels or faces? Or clearly on definition, it depends on who they attack. Right. I say in this match, if this is the match, if they come for a match, this is the match they show up at. The Brawling Brutes win it because there's no title change, and so Gunther will still be World Intercontinental Champion.
Right.
So you put the Brawling Brutes over, and then they get attacked. But I don't necessarily think this is going to happen because I don't think that the Sheamus Gunther storyline is done. So I think that there's more there. I think there's more you can milk from that. So I don't know if that's the case.
Even with the interference, you could still keep their match going. Like no. Yes, I beat you on a technicality. Let's get back in the ring and get back at this because we did not see who's the better at this.
Generico says hot take. I still don't think that Cross is that great. Dominic Dijakovic can do everything Cross does, but better. I agree.
Agreed.
But I think what Cross has, and this is what happens when you're a sports entertainer, he has the presentation down pat.
Yeah.
He's great on the mic when he's not going ridiculous, but Travis, welcome back. It has been a while. Nice to see you. Dominic Dijakovic is a much better athlete in the ring and a much better in-ring performer. I think Cross is good. I don't think he's great in the ring. I think he's good. But he also understands that his limitations and works to his abilities, as well as the entire presentation makes him look like a monster. That's why when he was first brought up to the main roster, he just looked like shit because they didn't use the presentation.
This goes back to Vince being out of touch. Vince booked him to be that way.
Okay, so this has me thinking now. Dijakovic has done a couple teases about maybe coming back. Okay. Like, he's not gone, he's just not being used. He's on the main event and shit. What if he's a part of the group?
Drop Loomis, put in
instead of Loomis.
Yeah,
because Loomis is in a storyline. So instead of Loomis, maybe it's Dijakovic as the fourth one. Now, I haven't seen any clues that point to him, but it doesn't mean it's not there. I could be missing it.
Right. I mean, and the thing is with the Dexter Loomis Miz thing and stuff like that, there's a difference between long-term storytelling and telling a story a long time.
Yes.
Right now, the Miz Loomis stuff is
it's getting to be story for a long time versus long-term storytelling. Absolutely.
I think Dominic Dijakovic needs something because of the loss of Keith Lee.
Yeah, I think that but they found something to do with Mace as a Mace. I love the Maximum Male models, although I'm super happy that LA Knight's coming back as LA Knight.
Is it LA Knight or is it Eli Drake?
It'll be LA Knight because all the things that they've talked about, like he's pointed to LA and then he's pointed to Knight multiple times.
Okay.
So they don't own the name Eli Drake. Impact still owns it.
Okay.
So it'll be LA Knight, but I'm happy he's going back to LA Knight. But I'm also happy that the Maximum Male models will continue down the road with Maxine and Massey and Mansois. Like, I love the Maximilian models. There's nothing better than goofy wrestling. I think it's very important. It's one of the reasons I love Orange Cassidy.
Yeah.
Goofy wrestling is very important. I think it's very important. It helps break up the monotony of a show. And especially having them on Raw, I think is very important because of a 3-hour show.
Yeah.
But Generico mentions a monster tag team with Loomis and Dijakovic. That would work too. So if Dijakovic is not part of the White Rabbit, having him maybe team up with, because Dijakovic is actually not bad on a microphone. When he's not giving stupid T-bar scripts to read, he's actually pretty good. And with work...
Look at his days back in NXT. He actually had some decent promos back then. Not the best, and he proved that he needed some more work. But with Triple H being back in charge of the WWE and stuff like that, he knows what Dijakovic has done. He knows the growth that Dijakovic has done and stuff like that. And he can go, okay, look, here's where I need to sway you. Try this stuff out and stuff like that. Dijakovic could quite literally be one of the greatest monster flipper big men in the WWE.
He could. Now, one of the things I appreciate that Triple H is doing that wasn't being done before, and that is part of the antiquated thought process of Vince McMahon stopped taking swings. He'd rather hit ground bases or be walked than try to swing for the home run and strike out. Triple H has taken no swings.
Mm-hmm.
Have they all been home runs? No. There have been some strikeouts. Or some strikes, not strikeouts. Strikes. But the fact that he's willing to take swings and play like Babe Ruth versus playing like a somebody else who just likes to get on base. I don't know, baseball, fuck it. I hate to, it's not my sport. But
anyways,
he likes to swing for the fences. And he likes to try things. He's willing to also look at something and go, if it doesn't work, he's willing to let it go. But he'll do it in a way. So back when Vince McMahon was there, if something didn't work, it just went away. It just all of a sudden was done, and they just went somewhere. It's like, and it made no sense, and it was very confusing. Triple H will find a way out of it to put a bottle cap on it and then move.
Right.
So again, I think if it's going to be a group, either the Bloodline gets attacked backstage, or maybe it's the Donnybrook match. Now, if it's just Bray Wyatt. It's Bray Wyatt by himself. Yes, Kel, go big or go home. Going back to the matches, if it's just Bray Wyatt himself, he could attack Edge after the I Quit match.
I don't know.
Or could attack Drew McIntyre after the strap match. I don't think he goes after... Oh, wait a minute.
What? If he goes after Drew, that gives Drew more of a reason. Oh.
Here's the thing. Think about this. We know where Rollins is going after this fight pit. Win or lose, he has a championship match, right?
Right.
Where does Riddle go?
Without Orton.
And who was Orton... Who did Orton face at WrestleMania? Put away the Fiend. The Fiend. He put him away. Orton basically got rid of the Fiend.
Basically.
Orton's out. Riddle is close to Orton. If Bray Wyatt comes back by himself, I think we go back to the fight pit, but it's Riddle that he attacks. I think Riddle wins this match because he hasn't beaten Seth yet. I think he wins this match. It's his match. Rollins doesn't need the win. He can go into the U.S. title match pissed off. Mm-hmm. That's fine.
A little bit more fire underneath his ass.
Yeah. But Riddle gets the win. Lights go red. White Rabbit plays. Cormier gets taken out first, then Riddle gets taken out. Because Daniel Cormier is going to be the guest referee.
Right, that is the only, in my opinion, that is the only little hiccup on this entire thing is Cormier.
I don't think so. I think that'll be great, because you could just very easily, like, pop up behind him, choke him out, or give him a Sister Abigail.
Or mandible claw. Yeah, give him mandible claw.
Mandible claw or a Sister Abigail, and you take out Cormier. And then if you give him a quick Sister Abigail, it takes him out, and then that's very quickly out before Riddle can do anything. Riddle will be shot. You give Riddle the mandible claw or something, like you can start a feud with Riddle here, because Riddle doesn't really have anywhere to go.
No, he doesn't.
Because you can't keep going with this whole. I think this fight pit ends the feud.
Yeah, agreed.
That's
amazing.
That would be awesome.
And knowing Bray, he could build up Riddle.
Yeah. Yeah, it can be done very well. The fans, we want Ken Shamrock, WWE. The best we can do is Daniel Cormier to feed to Brock Lesnar at NSA.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd be down with that.
Yeah. And then when Randy comes back, Riddle's not the same person.
I want to let it be known that there is a good chance Randy doesn't come back. His back injuries are far worse than they thought.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the latest update is his back is way worse than they thought. And I hate to say it because I love Randy Orton.
I do too.
But there is a chance, and that could be why, like, again, it almost seems like Riddle's directionless. Because there was plans for him to come back, but now it's just like it's going to be a lot longer, if ever. So now, like, it just that just clicked in my head. If it's just the Fiend coming back or just Bray Wyatt coming back, Riddle is a perfect person.
It is, because that is the last person that Randy had close ties with too. So yeah. I can't destroy Randy, so I'm going to destroy his best friend.
Yep.
Oh, man.
And as we enter the second hour here, I want to say a nice thank you to Rootless Coffee. Go to rootlesscoffee.com for some of the best coffee on the market. Use the code Panda Coffee. It's PANDACOFFE for 15% off all non-branded coffee and all merchandise. Rootlesscoffee.com. Use the code Panda Coffee for 15% off all non-branded coffee and all. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that I had to throw a little ad in there. It was a terrible segue. It was awful, but whatever.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
I like that had just clicked in my head because that was my thing. I'm like, he has to show up at Extreme Rules. You can't keep dragging it out, and it's a pay-per-view, and it's one that you're proving. Because yes, Clash of the Castle was kind of Triple H's first pay-per-view in charge, really. Because yeah, he was there for SummerSlam, but Clash of the Castle was his first, but it was still booked off of the stories from before his time. Extreme Rules is the first one booked solely off of what he has done.
Yeah, and the thing of Clash of the Castle, that weird ass ending with Drew and Fury singing stuff like that, I honestly believe that was Triple H going, okay, goodbye. That right there is the end of the McMahon era.
Yeah, that's kind of what the Clash of the Castle was. It was the showcase what he could do, but also kind of a send off from what was before. This is the very first one. This has got to be where the White Rabbit shows up. You cannot go past Extreme Rules. You cannot wait till Survivor Series. Got to be here. Jericho brings up a good point about Randy Orton. He could come back as just a corner man for Riddle, keep getting paid, and zeros on the bump card. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
He could definitely do that. He's a great mouthpiece. He already carries so much weight as a character and as a person in the locker room that I think that would work. But also, it would help with the feud. If he does get into a feud with Bray Wyatt, having Randy Orton come back as a corner man, I think just enhances the entire story. Because again, well, I mean, let's look at Bray Wyatt / match. Bray Wyatt / match. Yeah, it was WrestleMania 37 against Randy Orton.
That was it.
That's what I thought.
They had that slight build-up right before he got released with the Firefly Funhouse saying, don't worry about it. The sad times or everything's going to change. We're back, we're better, and stuff like that. Bray Wyatt himself, I actually met him down at FCW. We actually had a nice long discussion, me and him and Bo Dallas, and because I was cosplaying as Bray Wyatt, and he is a creative genius. Like if Bray wanted to, he could go to any federation, go, hey, here's a list of ideas with the people that you've got. Let's break the WWE. And he could happen, in my opinion. This is strictly my opinion, not fact. But
yeah, if you haven't seen the Area Hawani interview with Triple H, everybody should go watch it. Go watch the Ariana Hawani interview with Triple H because he asked him about Bray Wyatt. He isn't a creative genius, but it's also like trying to herd a tornado. And I understand that. When you have that kind of creative mindset, and I'm not trying to equate myself to his level of genius, but like I'm a writer. I've been trying to write novels for a long time. I haven't been able to get a single novel done over the last several years because my mind will not stop. Like I'll start working on one and then an idea for one of the other ones, which is nowhere near the same thing because I'm so all over the place. Like I'll be writing like a sci-fi thriller, but then an idea comes up for this like dark comedy horror one I have, and then my mind goes there, and so I stop writing this one and I start working over here. I have so many projects started, and it's about hurting a tornado, and that's the deal with Bray Wyatt. And that's the issue with Bray Wyatt as well, because he's also very passionate about his ideas. Creative types are often a bit unhinged. They have so many ideas and so many things, it's hard to keep them into one thing. Yeah, it's like ADHD on crack. It's hard to manage. And the other thing about a creative person is you become so protective and so passionate about your ideas. And so when somebody tries to change them, and not because they think your idea is bad, but because they have to fit it into a larger spectrum of things. So they're trying to shift it to make it fit the greater picture. You can become defensive and protective. And apparently, like Bray Wyatt and Vince McMahon used to get in arguments all the time. And I know that's probably a concern to Triple H. But in the interview, the way he talks about it, you can see that he's kind of tentative about it. But he also, it's almost like they've figured out a solution to it too. If you kind of read between the lines, look at his mannerisms, look at what his expression is, really listen to what he's saying. It seems that they've come to some kind of solution as far as how to control the tornado.
Right.
That is Bray Wyatt. So I definitely, I can't see it being anybody else. You've gotten like it's at this point without a clue saying it's Bray Wyatt. You have said it's Bray Wyatt. Now it's whether it's an actual group or if it's just Bray Wyatt.
See, my thing with the whole Gacy from NXT and stuff like that is what do you do now? Okay, so we take Gacy out of NXT. Cool. I think he's learned and earned enough to come out of NXT.
Well, he's also not going to fit with the new NXT because they're getting rid of 2.0 and it's going to become a melding of Black and Gold and 2.0.
Right.
And so his character may not really fit in with what's going to be happening there.
Okay. So what about the dryads that were working with him? Okay, they can something will happen storyline wise, and they're the brainwashing goes away from Gacy. There.
Yeah, let them go back to grizzled young veterans.
Better tag team anyways.
Which is what they were signed for in the first place. I'm sure Triple H is probably like, hey, you guys can go back to being the grizzled young veterans.
Right. So we got Gacy. We got Baron Corbin, Lone Wolf. Does he go? Can't grow the hair fast enough.
I think he's done growing hair because even if he grew it, it ain't going to grow on top anymore. So I think he's going to be bald.
Don't get me wrong. It's a good look for him. But we go back to the patchwork pants, the denim vest with the wolf on the back and stuff like that. We're back to the killer mentality and stuff like that.
Well, I think you go back to the mentality, but you keep him looking not necessarily dressed as Happy Corbin, but you find a good meld because he still has money. You're teaming him with JBL. You can have, again, it's not about going back to the old characters.
Mm-hmm.
It's about finding a mixture.
Okay.
And evolving into something new.
So
Self-bet, my man.
So we do
Thanks for
a
popping in.
mixture of the GM Corbin, which had the best clothing in my opinion. And the Lone Wolf and Happy.
Yeah, I think you kind of get rid of Happy because I think honestly Sad Corbin was the best Corbin ever. I don't say bring back Sad Corbin, but I do say maybe. Yeah, I think GM Corbin mixed with Lone Wolf. Kind of think about like Corporate Kane, kind of.
Yeah.
But more darker. As weird as it sounds to say that, but like, so you've got this, again, because you're going to have JBL still. I still think JBL is going to be JBL, and I think that that's actually a great contrast for the group, having this loud, boisterous, rich, egotistical bastard as kind of this figurehead money man for the group. You have Bray Wyatt in a cult leader combination of Fiend and Eater of Worlds and Wyatt family, again evolving the characters. And you bring in Gacy and have Gacy kind of evolve into something almost like a protege of Wyatt kind of thing. There's a lot there. That's if it's a group.
Mm-hmm.
And again, if it's a group, and by the way, if he is attacking the Brawling Brutes or Imperium, those are 3-man groups. You don't need a fourth.
No, so Dexter
so Corbin, Gacy, Wyatt works.
Yep. And then later down the road, when he does want to attack the Bloodline, we can add either Loomis or Dijakovic.
Yeah, you can add people to it. He can recruit for his cult.
Like he was supposed to do originally.
Generico, thank you for cheering 100 bits. Very much appreciated. You want to jump over to the Geeks and Noobs on Twitch and do the same? I'll love you forever. No, don't worry about it. But yeah, I if it's Wyatt individually, I think Riddle is the best option. That makes so much sense. It was one of the things I didn't.
Honestly, sitting down and like just talking it out, it goes, there it is.
Honestly, I'm gonna tell you what I've been doing Twitch for about a year now. I don't know what bits do either. All it does is like it allows you to cheer. So Kel asked the questions. Oh, hey, look, and you even get a dancing tails from Sonic. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. So Kel asks, do you think that there are too many factions coming into WWE now?
Nope.
Kel, I can understand that thought process, but I'm a faction guy. I love factions. What was one of the things that happened in the Attitude Era and Ruthless Aggression eras? We had factions. Now, I don't want WCW, NWO, 900 member factions, but you had DX, and then you had Nation of Domination.
Yep.
You had going into Ruthless Aggression, you had
oddities.
The oddities. You had the Team Un-Americans. You had Right to Censor.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I love factions because you can still push. Hey, Generico, thank you once again. Another dancing Tails. Gotta love Tails.
Factions allow you
factions.
Yeah. Factions allow you to have multiple storylines with multiple people. Like, okay, you just beat up my friend, so I'm gonna go beat up you and your friends for beating up my friend, and then it allows for so many different variants of stories and stuff like that, and it doesn't get bored with seeing the same match over and over and over again. You know?
You're fine, Generico. You're fine. You're fine. I got distracted. It wasn't you. I got distracted by Tails in that glorious double tail situation.
But the thing, yes, it is one faction versus one faction. But with the faction members, it allows for so many different varying things. It makes for great storytelling.
Exactly. It gives you the opportunity, if done correctly, you can have one of your members go after a world championship. I mean, but again, look at Evolution when they went after the tag titles and the Intercontinental title and the world title. Same thing when Nation of Domination did that. DX did that at the time. It allows you to do all these different things. I mean, the Bloodline's kind of doing it now.
They are, and they're doing it right. To be honest,
I'm a big proponent. I think 4 is enough. 3 is great. The New Day did that, have done that for however long now. Been phenomenal. I'm definitely a faction guy for sure. Kel says, I personally agree, factions for days. As long as they're done right, because it can get very old very fast. But if you do it right, I think factions are wonderful. And I think that being that, again, Triple H being part of 2 of the biggest factions ever, as well as one of the biggest real-life factions in wrestling, the Clique, he understands how to do factions right. So he was also part of the corporate ministry. So, I mean, he's been part of a lot of these. Like, there's ways of doing it. So I would love to see, like, I think right now we got Imperium, Brawling Brutes, New Day, Bloodline, Judgment Day, Damage Control. I think we need to get a couple more female factions. I think we need to get a couple more, like 1 or 2 more, like maybe face factions. Because what it does is first off, there has to be balance between the factions. You can't have just heel factions. Because you need to be able to protect your baby faces.
And as great as the babyface fighting against the odds storyline is a good one, it's not going to be work every single time, 1. And 2, it's going to get old if you're doing it over and over and over again.
Well, also you got to remember this. John Cena killed that shit.
Oh, yeah.
And I love John Cena to death. I think John Cena is one of the greatest people to ever live. He's the nicest guy in the world. I've met him several times. Had wonderful conversations with the man. Set a new world record for the most Make-A-Wish Foundation with 650 Make-A-Wish things. But the John Cena versus the Nexus storyline, it killed, thank God we got Bray Wyatt, because as Husky Harris in NXT, his career was over. Like, a lot of those guys had a hard time coming out of that. Many of them didn't.
Nope. I mean,
and the fact that John Cena beat them all single-handedly, I mean, yeah, it killed that idea. So I think that while you can do that, like a Drew McIntyre, it kind of makes sense. But yeah. Generico says, okay, I think of the Attitude Era specifically when Austin came into presence. In the majority of the scene, you had factions, DX, Nation of Domination, DOA, Oddities, Ministry, Corporation, etc. Austin stood out because he wasn't in one. You can make somebody stand out huge by having them in a mix but not aligned anywhere. Boom. Perfect example.
Yep.
That is a perfect example.
And look what happened to Austin when he joined up into a faction, aka showed the Devil's Hand.
Yeah, when he became the Alliance.
Yep.
And first off, him going heel was a stupid idea.
Yeah.
But second off, him being a part of that, it hurt. Now, granted, we got some of the best comedy bits between him and Kurt Angle. I thought that was fantastic. But
he could have done that face too.
I don't think so, actually, to be honest. I don't think his face persona would have damaged his face persona. I think that it helped him being a heel there. That was the only good thing to come out of him being a heel. That and the what chant, which I agree now has gone too far, but
yeah.
Even then, I do like it sometimes. Like, there's certain times when it makes sense. But yeah, you're right. You can then take an act, a baby face, a solo one, who's not aligned with anybody, who maybe pops in to help a babyface faction from time to time, but it's more out of his own, like, this is for me, not for you kind of thing.
Kevin Owens.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Kevin Owens is currently teaming with Gargano. I would like to see something there. Like, there's another faction you can make, though. Because, like, right now, if you notice, Ciampa hasn't been seen with The Miz lately. You can bring Ciampa back into that mix.
Yeah.
Panda Express for life, 1,000%.
Yep.
You can bring Ciampa in that mix, and maybe even one other indie guy from that era.
Unfortunately, the person I'd want to see in that, however, is in the bloodline.
For now.
Agreed.
Going back to long-term storytelling versus telling a story over a long time, long-term storytelling, Sami Zayn will eventually get kicked out of the bloodline.
Or turn
this Jey Uso hate will eventually build to the entire bloodline turning on him. That was planted with the shirt promo, the gaslighting promo from Roman Reigns. Eventually, that promo is going to be real. Kevin Owens makes the save. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn go after the world tag team titles. But you also have Johnny Gargano having their back, and maybe even Tommaso Ciampa having their back. So you have another feud there. So again, long-term storytelling versus telling a story long time.
Yep.
I feel like that's going to be there's another possibility when it comes to the White Rabbit.
Yeah.
This is far-fetched, and I think would be far more detrimental than good. But what if it's not Bray Wyatt at all? What if this is all a big tease for somebody else? Don't ask me who.
Casey.
I mean, maybe, but the fact that I think would kill Casey's entire career. Honestly, I think it would kill his career. People would hate him so much, and not in a heel heat way, but in a genuine, like,
go the hell away.
The man will get death threats. I promise you that. We have seen wrestlers get death threats for less.
Mm-hmm.
But you have thrown out way too many Bray Wyatt seeds. It's almost been smacking us in the face with it.
Yeah.
So it's just like, if it's not Bray Wyatt, whoever is the person is going to be hated. And it could derail all the goodwill that Triple H has built up with.
Yeah.
But, honestly, I mean, it's still a possibility.
It is a possibility. But then we have to look at the other side of that coin. If it is somebody else, why? Why would they put what?
Generico's like, watch it be Edge.
I would lose my shit, and not the good way.
Well, when he was coming back after the Judgment Day attack, a lot of people thought it was Bray Wyatt.
Agreed. I mean, with all the way they set up the lighting, the way they set up the camera work and stuff like that, it looked very Bray. You know. But there were little details that let people know, yes, it was Edge. Now, could they have shot that thinking it was going to be Bray and they were going to have Bray back sooner than they are now?
No, I don't think
so. I can see that. No, I
don't think so. Well, the only reason is because the very first one that was shot had the Eddie Guerrero and the Kurt Angle gold medals, and it had all the stuff that were his signature, the Edge's signature matches. I think that from the beginning it was all.
But then again, we've got the diehard fans. What?
Generico has some proof to his thought.
Oh, really?
The left leg of the Hangman was missing. Took him out with an attack on his left leg. Judgment Day took Edge out with that attack on his left.
This is true.
Generico, don't do this.
Don't do that, man.
Don't do this to me. I'm going to lose sleep over this now. It isn't until Saturday. I'm going to lose sleep over this now. No, I don't think it's Edge. 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 I don't think Edge is involved in any way, shape, or form. God, I hope not.
I think Edge is working on a redemption story for his career with Judgment Day.
Yeah, I think the Judgment Day option was a bad option for him.
No, dropping the Judgment Day. Kicking Edge out of Judgment Day.
Yeah, either stick it out.
Yeah.
Or not do it at all. Generico's like, no. Generico's like, no, it's still me. I'm still the White Rabbit. Okay. That's fine. That's fine.
We can appreciate that, Generico. But right now, the thing that's pissing me off is there's no one that looks like they could possibly do anything with Rhea.
Hell, you shut your mouth. He goes, like you sleep anyways, Vince. Shut up. No, I don't. So what?
Don't call a man out on his stuff.
What a little bit of sleep I do get, I need it all. So how about we not make it worse? How about that? Regardless. Yeah, I think that, I don't think it's Edge. But there is that sinking suspicion. And I think part of this is the trauma of under the Vince banner for so long, the Vince McMahon banner.
Yeah, the weird.
That, what if it's not Bray Wyatt? I think legit there's a riot in the damn arena. If somebody else comes out and it's not Wyatt. Now, here's the other thing. If it is group, Bray Wyatt doesn't have to show up on Saturday.
No.
He can just flash up. He can just flash up on the screen. And Corbin and Gacy can show up and attack somebody.
That would be cool. As long as there is a voice clip or a picture or something that says Bray Wyatt.
Yeah.
There has to be a payoff for all of this. That's what's... Because the thing is, like you were just talking about, we are still in PTSD from the Vince era. We are still dealing with, the 150,000 what ifs. One of the channels I follow, Wrestletok, they actually, on their Parts of Unknown channel, actually had a count of how many plots during the Vince era are still wide open.
Yeah.
It was over like 500.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so many stories that never got closure, or they teased it one way and then it was somebody completely different or something completely different, and it just it's because of scripts getting torn up and whatnot. I think that's something else we're going to notice. And even though like this past episode of Raw wasn't the best, but it was still better than what we've gotten in the last 5 years. But honestly, we're not. You can tell that a show is not having the script written up in the last 30 minutes before the show starts.
Yeah, people are.
They're very much
they're comfortable doing their stuff.
That the very much what's being booked was set up from the week prior, and it's very much a planned out and thought through show. So Generico still doesn't think it's going to be Bray Wyatt, and I mean that would be the biggest FU to the IWC for sure. But yeah. I think it would be if it's not Bray Wyatt, the negative impact that would have would be detrimental.
The backlash from it not being Wyatt would basically send everybody to AEW. No matter how bad their storytelling is right now, it would still send everybody to AEW or Impact. Okay, well
it's going to be Wyndham. Okay, that I'm okay with, because one of the clues was Wyndham County.
Yeah,
it could be part of his evolution could be getting rid of Bray Wyatt. It could be a reinvention of Wyndham Rotunda.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. Because again, especially if it is a group, and especially if Corbin is actually part of it, think about this. What was part of, we understood that Corbin had to be reinvented again. He got in Limino. JBL said, "What the hell are you doing? Get in here." And he got in a limo. We know Corbin's going to be reinvented.
Mm-hmm.
If Gacy comes up, it's most likely with a partial reinvention. Now, the only reason I'm can he? So here's the problem with it not being Bray Wyatt and it being Wyndham. Can people let go of Bray Wyatt? Can the fans let go of Bray Wyatt? Could he come back as Bray Wyndham Riot, or Wyndham Wyatt, or Bray Wyndham? There's something that has to, it's going to have to connect somehow, because people will never stop calling him Bray Wyatt. But you could be Bray Wyndham. It could be Wyndham Wyatt, which I think sounds way better. Wyndham Wyatt instead of Bray Wyatt. I think Wyndham Wyatt sounds awesome. I'm a big alliteration person though. But Bray Wyndham Wyatt, there's all kinds of things that could be done. I absolutely, again, I am on the same page as far as him reinventing himself. I do not believe we will get the Fiend. I do not think we're going to get the Bray Wyatt we're traditionally known to have. The people will respond to that person, whatever he calls himself. Wyndham will be over like Rover. And maybe he's just called Wyndham.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll find a way to tell us why. He'll tell us that Bray Wyatt is dead for a reason. Fiend is dead for, like, he'll find a way to tell us in a great promo.
Oh yeah. Even if it has something to do with Sister Abigail. You know?
Yeah, I kind of hope that kind of goes away, to be honest. Like, I love the move. I think the move is great, but I think the Sister Abigail gimmick is done. And the fact that there's also, and this is going back to what we talked about with the Randy Orton, and why I think if it's going to be just Bray Wyatt, Wyndham, whatever, it'll be Riddle who he attacks. Because Randy Orton has quote-unquote killed Bray Wyatt twice.
Yeah.
Once as Bray Wyatt destroying the Sister Abigail house, leading to the creation of the Fiend, eventually. And then, again, as the Fiend.
Leading to the melted face Fiend.
Yeah.
Ugh.
He created so much mystique around himself, people will see that man and automatically be like, ooh, we're on board. Yeah. I agree with that. And I think, again, he'll be able to explain a reason for the change. Because he'll acknowledge the past. He did it with the Fiend. He acknowledged Bray Wyatt from before. I mean, he took that cardboard cutout and cut it up with a chainsaw. But he still acknowledged that. And it still came up at other times, too. Like the match with John Cena at WrestleMania 36.
Great match.
Very interesting match.
John Cena himself has said that is one of his top 3 matches of all times.
Yeah. So I think, yeah, there's definitely something there. I definitely feel like whatever happens, I think the other thing is too, because of these teases, they're not only are they building the fan anticipation, but they're taking their time to make sure they get it right before it gets out on the screen. Because if they've been teasing it this long, that means he's been there this long.
Yeah.
That, unlike before, where they would tease things in hopes that somebody was signing, the reality of it is that Triple H is not doing this unless he already has him signed. So they are already working on all of this. So no matter what happens, I know this will be one hell of a debut. And it's good, but like I said, it's got to happen at Extreme Rules. You can't keep putting it off.
I mean, it all goes back to long-term storytelling versus a story told in a long time. If he keeps doing this little cuts and stuff like that, this little Easter eggs and stuff like that, it'll get to the point where people are like, okay, I'm bored with it.
Yeah, it's the Veer Mahan situation all over again.
Yes.
Veer Mahan was coming to Raw and coming to Raw, to the point that it became a meme.
Yep.
Then WWE became the white Karen on Facebook who became aware of a meme and ruins the meme by going along with the meme and then taking the meme too far, and then nobody cared. So it went from long-term storytelling to storytelling being told in a long way, and it became a joke of itself, and then the joke got old before he ever premiered. So he was dead on arrival.
He's back in NXT now.
Yeah, with his tag team partner, which is where he should be. Also, I don't know if this was covered, but it has to have a group involved of some nature. He has had to have someone currently on the roster placing these clues and QR codes around the shows, so there's at least one more person involved. Possibly. And that's kind of where my thought was going. But then go back to the Dexter Lumis thing. Dexter Lumis had somebody pretend to be a hooded figure so that he could then attack Miz and take it and drag him off, kidnap him. You could just pay somebody in your cult, knowing that the fans are part of your cult. So you could pay fans to do it. But I understand that thought process. I get where you're coming from on that one.
Money talks.
And again, if we're talking about a group and we're talking about a financier like JBL, maybe. Maybe. So never know. You never know. But yeah, that is a good point. There's been other, like I said, there's been other clues. There's been a lot of Corbin clues. There's been the Gacy clue, and even the JBL clue.
Yep.
This is true too, though. Getting QR codes placed in plain sight on camera would involve somebody more than a fan. True, including the one that was on the back of the clipboard that Corey Graves was holding, including the ones that are backstage. Yeah. So yes, that's more than a fan.
Okay.
That is somebody in production.
Hold on. Because even with that, I used to work at the Thunderdome, like, where Tampa Bay Lightning play and stuff like that. And I was doing cleanup crew and stuff like that. And I was always told if I wanted to come in early, I could sit down and watch a show, watch a hockey match and stuff like that, or go to the wrestling and stuff like that and watch, as long as I got to work and clocked in on time. I had backstage access to places that other people didn't have because I was part of the after show cleanup crew. So to a point, yes, you're right. But to another point, maybe not. Once again, this guy works for the stadium or whatever. You pay him a good amount of money. Please put this here, here, and here.
I would say that except for the clipboard.
That's the only one that I can't explain like that.
Yeah.
That has to be someone very close.
So I see where Generico's coming from. I kind of agree. But also, they do that all the time. Like, you'll see that all the time. It happens all the time. I mean, AEW did something similar with the Kip Sabian, where he had a guy duct taped mouth shut with a box on his head.
Yep.
Then he attacked Pac from behind. So there's always ways around that from a storytelling perspective. But it does, like you said, it does lend more credence to the group idea. And like I said, the other clues, like I said, there was so many clues for Corbin. Now that very blatant Gacy clue. All right, let's go full conspiracy theory. I'm down for that. Let's do it. Full conspiracy-esque idea. Corey Graves is rumored to be cleared. He was in NXT with Bray. What if?
He was.
This is true. However, now that he is commentating on both shows because Pat is gone, which, by the way, you can feel that loss. You can feel the loss of Pat McAfee. But we won't talk about that today.
No.
But Corey Graves could be involved in a way. My issue, I love Corey Graves. I got a chance to meet him. He's a really cool dude. I hung out with him. I got to do this really cool radio bit where I got to be a guest host on a radio show. He was also a guest host. And hanging out with him for 4 hours and doing that and then getting to talk to him afterwards. He's a cool dude. And great ideas. However, I'm not a fan of his really bad attempt to be Bobby the Brain Heenan. I think that, to be so ridiculously anti one way and the way he attacks Byron Saxton, it's a little much. However, yeah. Oh God, yes. Pat McAfee, we miss you, but also we're happy for you to get your bag. Absolutely, and he's having a blast. And it's just for the football season. When football season's over, he'll be back on SmackDown.
February, late February.
Yeah, February so we get him for half a year, and then he's gone for half a year. I'd rather get him half a year than not at all.
Yep.
But anyways, Corey Graves could be kind of part of the group, just on commentary. You know what I mean?
Pull a Taz.
Kind of, yeah. Yeah, kind of like the Team Taz situation. Also, what Paul Heyman did when he was on commentary.
Yeah.
During the Alliance era. So he could be ipso facto part of the group. Also, Pat McAfee Football Hall of Fame, 1,000%.
Agreed.
If anybody hasn't seen it, go on the Pat McAfee show and look for the clip where he is finding out for the first time that he's even on the list for the Hall of Fame. It's a very poignant clip.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but yes, pull an Alliance Heyman, exactly. Mm-hmm. Make it to where maybe dial back some of his other very heelish commentary, not all the way, but dial it back some. But when it's this group, He conducts all the interviews in the ring.
Mm-hmm.
He is the one like hyping him up on commentary. He is the one spreading their conspiracies and their cult-like agenda. But do it in a way that's not obnoxious. You got to find a better way to deliver it.
Something that makes sense for Corey Graves, And since now that FCW and NXT are being recognized as actual canon for the WWE, you can use some of his old stuff too.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
My only issue would be with him dealing with Carmella, because when it comes to how the character has acted with Carmella, it's just gotten ridiculous for me.
Yeah, I understand it's his wife, but that has gotten to be way out of control. Now, that being said, the group... Okay, I'm so glad you brought that up, though. Before I get into that point, I want to see the Savior misbehavior back in the ring. If he's cleared, let him wrestle. I agree. But at the same time, I think Corey Graves also, although he's cleared, I think he also understands he doesn't want to jeopardize his life. And he's already in a good spot, making more money now than ever.
Mm-hmm.
He may not want to jeopardize that. And I get it. I understand. Now, what is one thing that these factions are doing better now than ever before? Adding female components.
Yep.
And not in a manager or valet role, but in an actual performer role.
Rhea Ripley, prime example.
Yeah. What has Nikki Cross recently done?
Removed her mask.
And in that match with Candice, did a lot of her original Nikki Cross moves, like she very much is going back to the craziness. So Nikki Cross could also be a part of this.
And you can also have a connection with Alexa and Nikki, because they were a really good tag team, honestly.
There's been a lot of teases. There's been a lot of teases of Alexa in these clues, but not in a flattering light.
No.
So I think you've already got beef between Alexa and Nikki, right?
Right.
Since Nikki went heel. First from the switch, when Nikki was, why are you being like this? What has the Fiend done to you?
Right.
And now the coin is flipped to where Nikki is the heel, Alexa's the face. Now you have a female component. And you have a female component with somebody in the high-end babyface section of Alexa.
Mm-hmm.
And after War Games, Alexa needs a direction.
Mm-hmm.
So, new faction forms. Nikki Cross right now, because I had originally thought that maybe Nikki would end up with the Brawling Brutes, just because of the European connection.
Yeah.
But it would require a lot of change in her character. Right now, she's going to drop this almost superhero part of it. But she's far more connected to being, obviously, cult adjacent. Like, being susceptible to that.
Look at Sanity. Sanity was amazing.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that there's, a chance at Nikki Cross. Nikki Cross returns in a new kind of form with that group. And maybe not right away. Maybe it's something she gets recruited for. Because, again, she's just slowly coming out of this Nikki ASH. So that's something to keep an eye on as well.
Yeah. And that's a great thing about modern day post Vince Triple H in charge WWE. It's this actually might have a meeting down the road that's not going to get abandoned, or this could influence this and this. It's giving your conspiracy theory motivation again.
But what it also does is these aren't such smack in your face clues that if it doesn't happen one way, it doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Because again, her pulling the mask off and going back to a slightly Nikki Cross character could be simply a solo run.
Mm-hmm.
It could just be her return to character, not involved in anybody else. That's fine. But it also sets up the possibility of possibly joining this particular group, if it is what we think it is. It opens up the possibilities so that the story can go multiple ways instead of it being like, oh, this isn't going to work, abandon it, because this is the only direction we had to go in. These clues are so much more subtle that it allows for multiple directions to go. So if one way doesn't seem to work, you can go another direction you can pivot without it being such an abrupt U-turn that it doesn't, that the fans are not pulled out of the suspension of disbelief, you know.
And I'm sure Triple H had something set up in his mind or somewhere if this whole White Rabbit thing didn't catch on. You know,
Well, that's why I said that's why he allowed it to be in the audience only first. If this had gone on the internet and nobody cared, they would have gone a different direction.
And
he didn't put it on TV first. He put it in the audience first. He allowed the people in there to get it first.
I don't think it's even been, the White Rabbit thing itself has even been on TV. It's just been the QR codes. But if this would have happened during the Vince era or something like that, no one would have cared.
Well, it would have been done very drastically differently. It would have been the Titantron would have come up, and it would have been the White Rabbit. It had been very much like the Y2J situation when he came in 2000. Like,
right.
Because that, again, antiquated mindset. Hey, it worked then. So it would have been done in this kind of like slap you in the face kind of way. But they have done so many cool things, like the beginning of the Dexter Lumis situation where like they tried not to even acknowledge it was existing. The announcers were like, no, don't talk about that. Don't talk about that.
Right.
Generico says, had it been the Vince era, it would have been save us _ White Rabbit with no vowels. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It would have been, it just would have been basically a carbon, and he'd have come out, you know, with a lighted jacket and his arms out, like, you know, like it would have been ridiculous.
Yeah.
It would have been a straight carbon copy of it. That's something that Vince was doing. Like, again, antiquated mindset. But we don't have to worry about that anymore. Thank God. And again, is Triple H batting 1,000? No.
Can anybody?
Nobody can. And he's definitely, I would say, batting at least a 750. 75% of what he's doing has worked. Home runs.
And the thing is, it's still early. We still have time to see, you know, where, because things that we are thinking that's not working right now, we may later down the road going, oh my God, that was the pivotal point. You know?
Yeah. Like I said, this pay-per-view is technically the first one that is fully 100% Triple H era. I know people were saying that about Clash of the Castle, but like I said, a lot of those stories were still from the Vince era. This is the first one built solely around what he is doing. Solely around what he is doing. And we're going to get a taste of what's to come, but it's not until we get... The Royal Rumble will be a major milestone in his time, but WrestleMania will be the cultivation of proof. Like, this is it. The first ever WrestleMania under the Triple H banner.
Yeah.
There's no going back after that. If he can build to what is a possibility of one of the greatest WrestleManias of all time, then there's no denying that he is the new king of wrestling. The king of kings, as it were. And we won't get karaoke time. Well, we got karaoke time at Clash of the Castle.
Kinda, but yeah.
Which, by the way, why was America Pie the option of a song? But regardless, I thought that was weird. But
so many questions on both songs. So many questions.
But yeah, I think this pay-per-view is going to be that first step into seeing the true Triple H form. Survivor Series will be huge. Survivor Series is his first milestone. The first War Games on WWE proper TV. That's a big deal to longtime fans. Absolutely. Yes, I was just about to say that. Survivor Series is going to be huge. We're getting War Games. And it's funny because we actually talked about it on this podcast that I said that, like, that's what I think should happen. He should bring War Games to Survivor Series, and then not 2 weeks later, War Games at Survivor Series. I'm like, oh my God, I'm a prophet.
Or he watches your stuff.
Yeah, that's likely.
You never know.
But I really do feel like. So Generico says Sammy for the Rumble winner. I like that idea, but I do feel they're still going to stick to Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes comes back at the Rumble, wins the Rumble, that gets him into the main event at WrestleMania to eventually take the title off of Roman Reigns. Unless, of course, there is the whole The Rock is available. But here's the great thing about The Rock versus Roman Reigns: you don't need the titles involved in that match.
I would actually prefer to not have the titles involved in that match.
Well, yeah, because if the titles are involved, you absolutely 1,000% know who wins.
Yeah, Roman.
You don't think The Rock's going to win regardless. It isn't like he's going to come back to a full-time schedule or even a part-time schedule. It's a one and done. But still, there's literally zero chance if Roman is champion.
Yep.
So you do want to have Cody Rhodes win the titles at Mania. That's the hard part. That's the hard part of the whole situation. I don't know how you do that.
How about we have Cody come back before Royal Rumble?
I don't know if he'll be physically ready to.
I have no idea. I haven't heard anything on Cody in a while.
Recently, I've heard Royal Rumble might be the earliest, and even the latest story is that even the Rumble might be pushing it.
Really?
Well, again, we'll have to wait and see. I don't know. That's the hard part about. But again, if anybody can do it, anybody can pull this story off. It's gonna be Triple H. But I think it'd be dumb to. I know that Cody was brought in by Vince to kind of like, hey, see, we can make a star out of somebody that you guys had, kind of thing. I think it would be dumb of Triple H to not continue to push Cody Rhodes.
There wasn't any heat back in the days, was there?
No, they actually even though he destroyed the throne. Cody had heat with Triple H. Triple H did not have heat with Cody, and right. Cody has since addressed that he was immature. He actually Triple H is his favorite wrestler, and so there's a lot there.
Okay.
It's going to be Sami KO versus the Usos, but Sami beating Roman would make most sense beyond that if Cody's unavailable. Yes, if Cody's unavailable, I agree 1,000%. But I definitely feel it's going to be Sami and KO versus the Usos. And they'll end the Usos' reign as well.
I just want the story to make sense. Because in my mind right now, Sami's doing everything he can to make sure the bloodline stays together. He proved that he's worthy of being part of the bloodline.
But what did he also do when in the KO versus Jay match? He refused to hit him with a chair.
Yeah.
Planting seeds.
Yeah.
And planting seeds.
With all the Jay, I know what you're doing. I know what you're going to do in the future. You're going to try to tear this family apart from the inside. That's more seeds right there.
And Jay will eventually turn his brothers because they're his brothers,
right?
Eventually, they're going to see his side of things.
Yeah, of course.
Because Jimmy was upset that he didn't hit KO with the chair either. Like, there's a lot there. Like, there's. Again, long-term storytelling versus telling a story over a long time.
Yep.
This is long-term storytelling, and this is a long build. It's going very, very well. And technically it started before Triple H, but I believe that is another good point, though. So is Sikoa choosing Sami over either Uso is the biggest plot point so far.
Agreed.
Because that'll also pull into it as well. Because at the end of the day, even though Solo is picking Sami, if the bloodline tells him to make a decision, he's going to stick with the bloodline.
Yeah.
So it'll be even a more bigger betrayal because he's been by Sami's side all this time. And he's had Sami's back all this time. But then when they, Jimmy finally goes along with Jay and says, hey, no, he's definitely not on our side. They start beating him up, and then they put it to Solo. Sami thinking Solo's going to save him. And then Solo has to look at his family and go, no, I got to stick with blood. And then attacks him as well. That'll lead to the KO save. So, yeah. In the end, I'm just glad that people are seeing that Sami is the best worker in the business. I love it. Yeah, he is truly the greatest thing in pro wrestling right now. I don't care what company you're with. Truly the greatest thing in pro wrestling right now is Sami Zayn.
And to be honest, the match I wish I could have seen was Sami versus Bryan. This Sami versus that Daniel Bryan.
Yeah. Yeah, it would have been great. I think a babyface Zayn versus Daniel Bryan or Bryan Danielson would be even better. But I don't know if that'll ever happen again. I know that Bryan Danielson, more than anybody else, made sure he had a great relationship with WWE before leaving.
Mm-hmm.
I think Claudio did too. And I think some people are obviously kicking themselves like, oh damn, if I'd have known that Vince was going to retire and Triple H was going to be there, I would have waited it out. Because here I am getting nothing, sitting here getting nothing, like what Andrade is saying, and of course now there's like apparently legitimate beef between Andrade and Sammy Guevara. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But whatever. I think that we're in for a wild ride with this White Rabbit situation. We're in for a wild ride this Saturday with Extreme Rules. In our last few minutes here, let's go over the card and pick our winners.
All right.
So I'll pull the card back up, and we'll go with, starting with the Donnybrook, the good old-fashioned Donnybrook, Brawling Brutes versus Imperium. Who you got?
Unfortunately, this is one of those ones that I want. I'm gonna go with Sheamus and the boys, the Brawling Brutes, stuff like that.
Same.
With the caveat, if the White Rabbit team come in, this is the match they go in.
Agreed 100% on that one. I go with the Brawling Brutes, and if the White Rabbit comes in as a group, this is where they come in at. All right, the I Quit match, Edge versus Finn Balor.
Edge.
Yeah, I think so. Although in an I Quit match, all of Judgment Day can get involved.
Yeah, but so can Beth Phoenix.
Yeah, I think this will lead to a mixed tag match of sorts.
I'd rather see a straight up match, Beth Phoenix versus Rhea.
That could happen too. But there's a reason she left commentary. And she has been training, so.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I go with I think I'm going to go Edge as well. It just feels like it'd be weird to bury him again. Strap match, Drew McIntyre versus Karrion Kross.
I'm actually going to go with Cross on this one.
I'm very torn on this one. Because again, if he wins, he reaffirms himself as the top. McIntyre, if McIntyre wins, it reaffirms him as the top babyface on SmackDown. But if they're not going to put the title on him, it might be better to push Cross to get him over, even if it's some underhanded situation, especially since McIntyre is the one who asked for this match.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I'll go Cross on this one as well. But I'm torn. It's like 51-49 for me.
I honestly have more of my radars it's like Cross.
It just feels like, yeah, you can't bring him back in this first major pay-per-view, bury him either. Especially with...
Technically, this is his first real match, too.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so we got the Fight Pit with Matt Riddle versus Seth Rollins with Daniel Cormier as special guest referee. Who you got?
Once again, caveat on this one, Seth Rollins, unless Wyatt comes back. Because if Wyatt
I think no matter what, Riddle wins. Unlike the Cody Rhodes situation where Seth Rollins was able to lose 3 times in a row, Riddle cannot afford to lose yet again to Seth Rollins here. He needs the win no matter, especially in a Fight Pit. He's also never won a Fight Pit. He's been in them all. He's never won one.
Mm.
Bringing the Fight Pit to the main roster, having a special guest referee like Daniel Cormier, you have to put the spotlight on Riddle here. Seth Rollins doesn't need the win. So I'm gonna go Riddle on this one.
Okay.
Let's go Liv Morgan versus Ronda Rousey.
I'm gonna go Rousey.
I'm gonna go Morgan.
I honestly believe they wasted, because of one bad decision, they should have followed up more on the tap out pinning situation from that one match. But because they didn't really do anything with it, I'm honestly thinking right now they're like, all right, let's backtrack a little bit and give it back to Ronda so we can do Ronda versus Shayna Baszler.
I think what happens here is we get a double turn. Liv Morgan goes full heel, Ronda goes full face, but Ronda loses. Title is on Liv Morgan. And she'll win in a very underhanded way, even though it is an Extreme Rules match. I think it'll build to where, because Shayna was kind of quasi getting a babyface rub in a way. Mm-hmm. So I think that I'm going to pick Liv on this one.
Okay.
And then final match, Bianca Belair versus Bayley ladder match.
Hands down, Bayley.
Yeah, I think so too. It's better to have the face chasing the title than having the title. I also think it's better for Damage Control to have them have the titles. It builds up to a better thing at War Games, because really, why would you continue with War Games if Bianca wins? So I'm going to go with Bayley on that as well. But I wouldn't be surprised if Bel-Air won.
I would.
But I'm going to say Bayley. I'm going to pick Bayley on this. So as of right now, that is the card. Ladies and gentlemen, that is our show. Thank everybody so much for tuning in. And next week, I think Jamal will be back. But Jason, anytime you're available, we'll have you on as well. Thank you so much for doing this for me. That was kind of really last minute, but I appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. There is no Outside the Brand tonight. Phil is not feeling well, so you guys have the night off. But enjoy the rest of your evening, and we will see you guys very, very soon.